All right, Jim. Well, our next question sent to cornydrivethrough@gmail.com from Danny Stamp in Liverpool, England. Not Dennis Stamp, Danny Stamp.
At least Danny got booked.
In an event where you might have wrestlers running from the back, the side, or even the crowd, how well prepared do those working security have to be in order to know which are threats and which are kayfabe? Is it spelled out ahead of time?
Good question, Shelton. That is a good question. For one thing, especially in the territory days, and I mean, I'm sure it's probably happened so somebody can maybe cite the instance, but it was certainly not often. You never had heels running in from the crowd. They would run in from the back where the wrestlers entered from if you're going to do a run in, but you would never send the heels out in the crowd. Every once in a while, the baby faces would do a run in from the crowd, the old misdirection play. And the first time I ever saw it live was, oh, God damn it. I think it was in 1976, Bill Dundee and Frankie Lane, Cowboy Frankie Lane. Was getting this before I was even a photographer, and I was just last in line to get a Coke during intermission. And son of a bitch, as I get my drink and I'm just starting to walk back in the building at the Gardens, there comes Bill Dundee and Frankie Lane running as fast as they possibly can past me. And a bunch of fans saw them, oh shit, and they start running that way. And I just go back in the building. What happened was, in the Gardens, to get around to the front door, you'd either have to go all the way around out the back door and all the way around the building and come in the front, or just run out the breezeway. They were doing the deal where there was a grudge tag team match and the heels are waiting in the ring for the baby faces to come out, and the baby faces, instead of coming out the normal entranceway, they come from the front door and they jump the heels from behind, jump start the match, and the people are crazy and it's wild. So every once in a while, you might have the baby faces run in from the crowd. Otherwise, it never happened for all the reasons we've talked about over the last few weeks, especially if it was a heel running into the ring. They weren't going to make it because the fans would take them down. So the only place that run-ins ever came from back in those days when you needed security was from the established, aisleway. Having said that, another good part of the question, did you smarten up the security? It depended on where you were. In a place like Charlotte, and Doug Dillinger, who was later on the WCW head of security, was a cameraman for Crockett back in those days, but he was also a Charlotte City police officer. And he was smart to the business. He knew a lot of the boys, did private work for Crockett. And he could tell some of the other guys, okay, we got to watch out for this or that. Some of the other cops. You generally had, in places where the same cops, the same off-duty city police or security, whatever, worked the matches every week. Even if you couldn't come out and tell them something, they knew what was going on, and it was a job, so they were respectful. Dean Hill, who was my broadcast partner on OVW for ages, was a Louisville police officer for 25 years. He was first member of the SWAT team. And he started working the matches there. That's how he ended up becoming the ring announcer, because he'd been around every week, and finally they were short an announcer, and he had a good voice, and Teeny liked him.
He's the one who, when we had the Smoky Mountain USWA show in 95,
yes,
told them to put the spotlight on us. He said, I hear there's some fans from Smoky Mountain Wrestling here. Of course, leading to them having to empty the building around us and give us a police escort out of town.
That was Dean for you.
That was the head of the police, yeah.
But anyway, so the point is, sometimes the cops would know they were regulars, but they didn't want to insult your business. Other times, you just hoped they would pick up on it because you weren't allowed to obviously tell the cops what the finish was of a match that hadn't happened yet. And I remember one time specifically, I was in Cleveland, the site of the Ox Baker and Ernie Ladd riot. And it was the only time this has ever happened to me before. I never, except this one time, had to run in on a lumberjack match. And what it was, oh goddamn, I can't even remember. It was 1985 as our first trip to Cleveland. We were fulfilling the Georgia dates that Georgia had in those Ohio towns, even after Crockett had taken over things. But it was a lumberjack match between, I think Terry Taylor was one of the top baby faces, and somebody else with everybody else on the card around the ring as lumberjacks. And while they, at the climactic point of the finish, they would all get in a big fight and something would be going on in the ring. The referee would be distracted and I would run down and whack, I believe, Terry Taylor with my racket, knock him out, and he'd get beat. Well, I realized besides the fact that we're in Cleveland and the crowd's a little rough around the edges anyway, there's usually when I would have to do a run in, I'd be with the Midnight Express. They'd be coming with me. Well, they're already at the ring. And there's none of the other heels that are standing in back at the other end of the aisle to keep an eye on watching my back. So I'm solely going to have to rely on the cops who don't know that I'm going to suddenly just run to the ring. So I realized what I had to do. So in the intermission before the match, I'm out there with the cops and I said, yeah, this main event's going to be a lumberjack match. They said, yeah. I said, all the guys around the ring, I said, it's going to be so exciting. I don't know, but if some point, if I lose control of myself because I'm excited and have to run down to the ring, I sure hope somebody goes with me. And the guy said, I got you. So he stood back there and waited for me and went with me. But I still didn't say anything I shouldn't have said necessarily. But that sometimes you had to take matters in your own hands. But yeah, point being, the cops in those days were always looking for trouble from the fans. But unless they were, in the family, so to speak, like a Doug Dillinger, or in some cases, there were cops that worked matches that actually had been one of the boys before. You could go to, to them, but under normal circumstances, no, you had to hope the security did their job because you couldn't fucking go up and just tell some cop, especially one you didn't know, hey, this is what I'm going to do, because that would have been violating the spirit of the issue.